in the last stream, we set up this system right here with 3 block breakers from industrial foregoing, which I did wrongly say in the last stream could be powered. However, between streams, I have done a bit of testing in a creative mode world, and I found out very quickly that you'll see here it says power 0 out of 0 FE, which means you cannot put power into this thing whatsoever. I don't know if that's specifically a tweak for this mod pack or if that's just the default way that the block breaker is, but unfortunately, that does mean that these block breakers are currently running at their maximum speed, which is not incredibly good, but at the same time is kind of completely fine because, as you can see, I have left this running for quite some time between streams. So now we have a bunch of sand, both red and regular. We've got a bunch of smooth stone, gravel with a little bit of flint, and we also have a good amount of cobblestone, andesite, diorite, granite, and even a little bit of soulstone cobble, which I actually had no idea that we got. Maybe though, that is new because I have updated the pack between streams. Let me have a look here real quick. So yeah, so now there's like a little chance of getting soulstone as well whenever you do like this regular cobble generator that doesn't have a block underneath it. So that's nice to have, I guess. But I have updated the pack, and there have been quite a few big updates. One of the biggest, at least in relation to the shop here, is that the scale, the one that would allow us to breathe on the surface, now requires 200 C-Bucks in order to purchase. So unfortunately, I don't think we're going to be purchasing that anytime soon. I think right now we're probably at about 140 C-Bucks. So not miles away, but there also are probably other things that we might want to purchase before we purchase those. We do now have access to this quest, which lets you trade 6 C-Bucks for 64 dirt. This is a super cool quest, and I'm really glad it's here. Would have been a lot nicer to have this, for the early game. I'm fairly certain if you're going to start the pack now, you'll have this from the beginning. So this is really nice to have. Saves you just having to grow a ton of trees to get all of the dirt that you need to start with. And this quest right here actually seems super interesting. So this allows you to copy and paste your own structures or others. Join the Discord to share your designs or copy other designs. So we can spend 25 C-Bucks and we get it's not a building gadget, right? But it's from the building gadgets mod. Nope. That was very close. We should probably head on back inside real quick, just so that we don't take any more unnecessary damage while we look through the quest book here. But real quick, let's have a look here. So this might be like the copy and paste gadget. Yeah, this guy right here. So I'm fairly certain that we could, if we wanted to, use this to fully copy this like initial what? Oh no. Okay, so slight malfunction in the roof there. Okay, real quick, let's get some materials and see if we can't fill this in. Right now we don't have that much glass, which is unfortunate, so we might have to go with a slightly janky fix here. On the plus side, it does make getting up to the surface a lot easier. The bad news is that it makes it slightly more difficult to walk around inside of the old base. Alright, so that is taken care of. It doesn't really look great. In fact, what I might do right out of the gate here, before we get started with the Smeltery, which is the Tinker's 2 questline, which hopefully we're going to get done fairly quickly. But I think what I'll do is I'll go and quickly grab a stack of regular sand and smelt that up in the old blast furnace that we made last time to start getting some glass going, just so that hopefully later on in today's stream we can refill in that roof with actual glass as opposed to the horrible wood that we have currently filling that gap. So we'll just throw this in here for now, and we'll come back to that later on in today's stream. So if we take a look at the quest book, last time we finished the ceramics questline, and the only 2 questlines that we have left in moving on up are Tinker's 2 and the chapter challenges. Now, as I mentioned, since the end of the last stream, the pack has been updated, and you'll notice there are 2 new quests at the top of this questline, and these are really cool because now we have Botany pots in the pack, which are going to allow us to grow trees automatically, again, cutting down on the amount of time that we have to spend manually planting, growing, and cutting down trees going forward. These, to the best of my knowledge, have been nerfed somewhat. It does say in the changelog for the pack that these can only be used with saplings. You cannot use these with all of the other crops in the game like you normally would be able to. So going forward, as we start working on like the farming and all the farming, when we start working on these quest lines, we're not going to be able to grow like melons and wheat and pumpkins and basically every kind of crop in the game. In the botany pots, it's just for saplings. Before we can get to these botany pots, though, we do, of course, have to start at the bottom here by creating some grout. So grout is made by crafting up sand, gravel, and clay. You can either make 2 at a time or 8 at a time if you use a block of clay here. And so this really shouldn't be too difficult for us. We've got a ton of sand up on the surface, and we also have a little bit of gravel, but we also have a ton of smooth stone, which, if needs be, we can hammer down into gravel. And the only thing here that we are currently missing is clay. So I think what we should do right out of the gate here is we should grab a new bucket, and I think we should look at moving this kind of little clay making system right here up to the surface, the one that's currently, fully submerged in water, because I think we can do a little bit of automation and just make it a little bit easier to access in general. So let's take some sand, let's take some gravel, let's also take some smooth stone just in case. That did complete one of the challenge quests. And as I mentioned last time, I don't think these are going to be too difficult. In fact, we can complete another one right here if we just grab some of that red sand real quick. Beautiful. And yeah, one quest we are about to do in Tinkers is we are going to complete this quest here to make 1 seared brick. However, over in the chapter challenges, there is a quest to make 64 seared brick. And so I think I might try right out of the gate, seeing if we can't make just 64 seared brick. Not only is that going to complete both the quests for us, but it's also going to give us a good amount of seared brick to allow us to build a fairly large smeltery right out of the gate. So that would require 64 grout, which would be 32 gravel, 32 sand, and 8 blocks of clay, which really doesn't seem too bad. We are going to have to sift some gravel to get the dust that we can then craft into clay. But again, that shouldn't really be too difficult for us here. Okay, so a little bit of clay later. What we're going to do here is we're just going to craft up that clay with some dust here to make some more porcelain clay. And then from there, we're going to make a new bucket. And that bucket is going to allow us to set up a new unlimited water source up on the surface here, which is then going to allow us to start filling up the old wooden barrel that right now is down here on the surface as well. So we don't have to drop down into the ocean every time we want to make clay. So the idea here is we'll take this bucket and essentially, again, I'm going to build out of dirt just because it's nice and easy to break. But the idea is that we're going to have the flopper above the wooden barrel. Below the wooden barrel, I think we probably want to invest in another wooden hopper here. That's going to allow us to automatically pull the clay out of the barrel, much like we're doing with the dirt as well. So I think we want to have something like this with the wooden barrel on top of it. We then have the flopper on top of that. And then on top of that flopper is where we need an unlimited source of water. And I think, again, as janky as it is going to look, I think if we do this, and this, and, kind of fill this in, there should be 3 blocks up here. We're going to put water here, and then the water that is created in the middle should get funneled down into the wooden barrel, continually filling it up with water. From there, we could also have a hopper right about here, and all we should have to do is put blocks of dust into this wooden hopper. Once the barrel fills with water, this wooden hopper should feed the dust into the barrel, hopefully, and then from there, that should turn into a block of clay, which should then be pulled out by this wooden hopper here. That is the idea. It's quite possible that that doesn't work. You might have to input the dust from the top. If that is the case, then it's quite possible that we could maybe move the flopper to the back. That might work. I'm not too sure. Let's try, though. So water here and water here. And that does appear to be working. So hopefully once this fills up with 1,000 millibuckets of water, we should see, look at that, clay get made and get deposited. It totally works. Beautiful. So now all we have to do is put dust in here and we get clay out at the bottom. And we only need 8 blocks of clay if we're going to get 64 grout. So let's go ahead and do something like this. For now, we'll just throw all of this dust into here, and that should get us all of the clay that we're going to need. We already have all of the gravel and all of the sand, so we should be pretty much good to go. Now, the people in the Twitch chat are shouting at me for this horrendous dirt mess that I've made over here. And so in the interest of making it look a little bit nice, so I will put some glass down around here just so it's not quite so horrific to look at. Is that better, chat? It still definitely looks a little janky, but I think it's maybe a bit better than having all of the dirt there. And there we go. We got 13 blocks of clay. Let's throw that in the top corner. We'll then do the 4 sand. I think this is a shapeless recipe, by the way. Shapeless recipes being recipes where you can put the items anywhere in the grid and it still works, so you don't have to put the items in any one particular space. So long as all of the items are in the crafting station somewhere, it will work. So let's go ahead and make sure we get exactly 64 grout here. That's going to complete both the grout quest, and as soon as we smelt all of these up, it's also going to complete the challenge quest as well for seared brick. Now, in terms of smelting it up, we of course can do it in here, but it's probably worth... Oh, we can't do it in here. It has to be done in the blast furnace, much like the sand. Okay, so we'll throw that in over here. We'll throw in a little bit of tiny coal as well, and we'll also eat some apples. Oh, which does remind me though, before we eat the apples, another update that has occurred with the newest update to the pack. They removed the ability to eat water, unfortunately. You can still drink the bowls of water to get water breathing, which I believe was always the intention. But unfortunately, no longer can you use water and a bowl as an infinite source of food, which seems like a good update in my mind. That seemed like a bit of a cheesy way of getting unlimited food. However, to compensate for that, the pack creator did add cooked apples to the pack. So you can now take all of the apples that you're generating from cutting down trees and use those in the furnace to generate cooked apples, which are essentially just a better version of regular apples, giving you more hunger and more saturation refill, which is beautiful. While we wait for all of the seared brick here to smelt up, though, we can begin completing some of the quests in the Tinker's 2 questline here. So the first, of course, is for seared brick. Following on from that, we have the seared heater. This is powered with coal to provide heat to a basic smeltery. So this, super easy to make. It is just 8 seared bricks in a circle, like so. We've got the seared melter placed on top of a heater or seared tank to make a basic smeltery. So this guy requires 5 seared bricks and then 1 seared gauge. This is made with 5 glass and 4 seared brick. That seems very doable. We might actually just have enough seared brick to make this work as well. So glass gets us this guy, and boom, we get the melter. And I'm pretty sure that if we do something like this and like this, this is kind of a very basic smeltery. So I'm fairly certain that now if we wanted to, we could put fuel in here, so something like coal, maybe even wood as well, would work. And then in here, we can begin melting things down. However, we can take this one step further. Let's go ahead and claim this reward. A seared tank can go down in place of the seared heater here. So if you put the seared tank underneath the seared melter, then you can use lava as your source of fuel as opposed to regular fuel. We will probably switch over to lava in the future, but for now, I don't think it's really necessary. We're probably going to want to get lava automated before we start looking to use it in our smeltering. The seared faucet, though, is fairly easy to make. It is just 3 seared bricks, 1, 2, 3, in a bucket shape like so. That's going to allow us to pull the molten fluids out of the seared melter. And then up here, one of the final quests is to make a casting table and a casting basin. And I am realizing now that I've made a slight mistake, because my plan was to have 64 seared bricks so I could complete the challenge quest. That's not a huge deal. We can make more grout later on today, but that was a mistake on my part. I should have waited for everything to finish smelting first. Either way, that is a casting table. You can put these down right about here next to the faucet. And I guess we might as well do something like this and have the casting basin, the next item that we're about to craft, on the left-hand side. And the idea here is that we can use the seared melter to melt things into their molten form. So, for example, there are 2 quest lines here, farming and all the farming, that we will come back to, but I think for now we kind of want to skip straight down to advancing. In here, we actually start getting some materials, things like copper, tin, and nickel, and we can use these further down here to begin with some basic automation, getting some fluid pipes, some item pipes, and some automation in terms of auto hammers and auto sieves. All of these I think are going to be super, super useful for us. So in terms of flint sieving here, we did get a flint sieve last time, although I think we might have ended up using the flint sieve in a crafting recipe. Yeah, of course, we used it to make our block breakers. Right, so in that case, we are going to have to make a new flint mesh, which should be pretty doable. We've got a ton of flint at this point in time, which is beautiful. Do we have any leaves? We do. They're just not connected up to the crafting station. That is fine. So boom, and then boom, 1, 2, 3, 4. And boom, we get a flint mesh. For now, what I'll do is we can shift right click here to take the regular string mesh out and we'll put the flint mesh in. When you do that, this does mean that we're now limiting ourselves to either using 8 string meshes or 1 flint mesh. Like, you can't use both of these at the same time. For example, if I start sifting the gravel, oh, you can use both of these at the same time. That might be new. I didn't think that was the case. Either way, if that is the case, I think what I'm going to do is temporarily move this away, because we want to do specifically certain sifting in the flint mesh and other sifting in the string mesh. So for the time being, I'll just move this to like right about here. And if we look at that quest line again, copper, tin, and nickel, I think are all acquired by sifting either sand or red sand. So if we take some regular old sand here and we begin sifting in this flint stiffened mesh, we should start to get, I guess, both tin and nickel. Now, the odds are not super high. I think it's a 1 in 3 chance on the tin, and it might be slightly lower on the nickel, or on the niter, I guess. Let's have a look here. So we have a 20% chance of getting nickel, a 30% chance of getting niter, and a 30% chance of getting tin. So we've actually got surprisingly lucky on the tin, and surprisingly unlucky, I think, on the niter and on the nickel. Now, someone does ask in the Twitch chat about the heavy sieves. Down in basic automation, there is a quest for the heavy sieve, and the heavy sieve is a little tricky. The recipe has been tweaked here. It requires 2 logistical transporters. So unfortunately, we're not going to be able to make this heavy sieve until we have bronze and constantan. These are both alloys that you can make in the smeltery. So bronze, for example, is an alloy that is made with copper and tin. So if we can get 3 copper ingots and 1 tin ingot, we can put all of those into our little smeltery setup to my right here, and that will get us 4 bronze ingots that we could then pull out into an ingot cast in the old casting table. For now, though, let me quickly go ahead and do something like this. That's going to complete the basin quest, and also that's going to unlock us the botany pot. So what's the recipe here? The recipe here is 5 terracotta and 1 flower pot. That actually seems very doable. Now, normally, you would smelt clay to get terracotta. However, in this pack, you do have to go through Tinkers to do it, which is why the quest is in the Tinkers line. So in order to make this terracotta, we are going to have to melt clay down in the smeltery, which is probably the perfect way to show off how this works. So if we put some clay in on the left here, that's going to go ahead and begin to melt down very quickly using the fuel from the bottom here. And then once we have clay in here, it does appear that the internal tank can only hold 1 block of clay, but if we right click on this seared faucet, that clay is going to get pulled out into the casting basin, and that should fairly quickly here cool down into 1 block of terracotta. Nice. We can of course do the same thing again, put in the rest of the clay here. Not particularly fast, but it does work. The casting table is used to make things like ingots, whereas the casting basin is used to make blocks. We can also use the casting table to make tool parts. So over here, if we want to upgrade some of our tools, for example, if we wanted to make a pickaxe head out of a metal, you would have to melt that metal down first. You can't, for example, put iron into this part builder slot here and then just make an iron pickaxe head. You first have to melt the iron down into molten iron, and then from there you can pull it out into a pickaxe head cast, which you can then use to actually upgrade your tool to an iron pickaxe head. So while we wait for this last bit of terracotta here, let's go and smelt up some clay. That's going to allow us to make the old flower pot. People in the Twitch chat are pointing out that the base is made of terracotta, so if you really wanted to, you could, for example, just mine out 5 terracotta here, replace it with like glass or with dirt or with wood, anything you like, and then you could use that as opposed to doing it this way to make the terracotta. That would work just fine. Either way, for now, our brick is done. Let's craft that up into a flower pot, craft up the flower pot with 5 terracotta, and boom, we get a botany pot. Now, I'm fairly certain that we can then upgrade this to a hopping botany pot. Yeah, the hopper botany pot, this one right here, made with a regular botany pot and a wooden hopper, which I do believe is a custom recipe there. I think normally you need a regular hopper, but thankfully that has been tweaked in our favor, so boom and boom. The difference being here that normally, if you place down a botany pot, it will grow your sapling into a tree, but then you have to manually harvest that tree once it's fully grown. The hopping botany pot will allow you to automatically harvest the tree and place it into an adjacent inventory. So I'm fairly certain if I do something like this, grab a chest, throw that chest down, let's say over in this corner, place the hopper botany pot above it, what we should then be able to do is place some dirt into that botany pot, like so, and place a sapling into that dirt. And I'll use a dark oak sapling here because I would like to start getting some dark oak wood for potential building in the future. If we put that on, you'll see that on the left there, we have a grow time of 1 minute. So it takes 1 minute for the tree to fully grow. But once that tree has fully grown, what we should see is we should see items get deposited into the chest beneath it. And if we look in JEI here, we can see that we have a 75% chance of getting dark oak logs. We have a 50% chance of getting dark oak leaves, and we have a 10% chance of getting dark oak saplings. It does say rolls 1 to 3, so I think you have like 1 to 4 chances of the 75%, if that makes sense. So you could, I believe, get 4 dark oak logs per sapling that's finished. So we just had our first sapling there, and we did get 4 dark oak logs, which is very nice indeed. Didn't get any saplings or leaves, but we will slowly but surely get those as time goes on. And yeah, that's kind of it. This just goes automatically forever now. It's a nice, easy, compact way of farming trees. And of course, if we wanted to, we could set up multiple more botany pots and we could, fill a room with them to start really pumping out our wood. For now, though, I think this is fine. It's going to slowly but surely give us a supply of wood as well as a supply of leaves that we could potentially use for dirt in the future. And in fact, somebody does mention in the Twitch chat that this is a very good time to use one of these 2x2 storage drawers. If we place this 2x2 drawer down right about here, as you can see, the logs, the saplings, and the leaves automatically go into their respective slots. And once one of those does fill up, so eventually we're probably going to fill up on oak logs before anything else. When that happens, this 4th slot here will then begin to fill up with oak logs as well, which is great. And we can hold up to 512 of each item. And again, maybe 1024 if we end up with 2 drawers full of dark oak logs. But this is basically good to go. Anytime we want, we can come and take these out. For now, though, let's go ahead and claim these rewards right here. Beautiful. And the only other quest left in here, apart from the seared tank, which actually is very easy for us to make, so we will craft it here, even though we're not going to use it until we have a better source of lava. There we go. We'll put that away for now. Again, you could put that just under here and fill it with lava if you wanted to use it. But the final quest in here is for the Flint pickaxe head. So this is just an upgrade over the regular stone pickaxe head that we have right now. And as per usual, all we have to do, throw in some flint, grab a pickaxe head, put that onto our tool, and boom, we've now got an upgraded flint pickaxe. And we've also completed the Tinkers 2 chapter. So in terms of the chapter challenges here, we need to get 64 terracotta. Oof, that one's going to be interesting. There are a few other quests here. Of course, there's a quest for seared bricks, which should be actually fairly easy for us to do. Let's get some more dust, and let's start making that into more clay. We should be able to get the remaining grout fairly easily, and then we can smelt that for the rest of the seared bricks. There's also a quest to get 64 charcoal, which again, should be nice and easy for us to do. We can just throw some wood in and just let that do its thing. Eventually, that will turn into 64 charcoal for us. There's also a quest for a wooden crucible. Now, I'm not quite sure what the point of the wooden crucible is. It says melt blocks and items into different fluids. Having a heat source underneath will make it melt faster. This recipe does require the fired crucible, but if we look in JEI, I don't know if it does anything that the fired crucible can't do. There's a lot of recipes here about making organic water, but you can also make the organic water in a regular crucible. So I'm not too sure if there's a point to making the wooden version. We can make it, just for the sake of completing the quest and getting the draw controller here with the keys. But I don't really know if there's much point in having it like for practical use. And then the other 2 quests here are Fishy and Fishy 2. So these are to get 32 cooked salmon and 32 cooked cod. So let's go quickly check in our strainer. How are we doing down here? We've got 13 cod, 22 salmon. I think it's quite possible we might have a little bit more up here somewhere. Yeah, we've got... Oh, but I cooked it. Does it need to be cooked? It does need to be cooked. Okay, that's actually very useful then. So we need to cook up all this other cod, and then we need 4 more. So we should probably grab our fisherman's strainer, drop that back into the old strainer base down here, and then, of course, fill that in with some more worms. Thankfully, we've got a ton of silkworms here, so boom. Thankfully, we do still have the old bait pot here. So, boom, and boom. That should slowly but surely begin getting us more salmon and more cod so that we can complete that quest later on today. We also do have to wait for that charcoal to finish as well. So for now, I'll just go ahead and put the fish back into this chest. So a lot of these we can come back to. Most of them are just a case of waiting for things to smelt, or in case of the terracotta, just making a lot of terracotta. So down here, let's have a look at the Flint sieving questline. So we've got a few more sea books here. We'll go ahead and drop those in over here. We're currently at 112 sea books. So just over halfway there for wanting to buy the scale. And the only thing we're missing for the first line of quest here is copper. So let me do a little bit of an inventory dump because we've got so much stuff kind of clogging up our inventory at the moment. And let's head on up and grab some red sand that we can then sift to try and get some copper. Once we have that, we'll look at seeing if we can't smelt down these guys into their ingot form, and then also see if we can't look at making both bronze and Constantan, because of course once we have those, we can begin looking at some basic automation, and most importantly that heavy sieve as well. The idea, for those who don't know, with the heavy sieve is that you can sieve 9 items at a time, because you can sieve the compressed form of any given block. So if we take our regular sand and compress it into compressed sand, we could then sieve 1 compressed sand at a time in the heavy sieve, which is effectively sieving 9 sand simultaneously. You can of course do that with 9 regular sieves, but the benefit of the heavy sieve is that you don't have to make 9 meshes. You can just use the 1 mesh in there. So let's do a little bit of red sand sifting here. 1 copper does complete the quest for us. However, I'm fairly certain that we need 4 copper in order to complete the next quest, which is to get like 1 copper chunk, which we can then smelt into 1 copper ingot. So we'll go here until we have 4 copper dust. I then think we're going to want to sift a little bit more sand as well, because we're also looking to get, actually never mind, we've already got enough nickel ore and tin ore. Beautiful. So if we do something like this, we get a copper chunk. If we do this, we get a tin chunk. And if we do this, we get a nickel chunk. Nice. From there, we'll claim the quests. Beautiful. We need to smelt these down. So I think at this point, we have to start looking at getting casts. And I think in the newer version of Tinkers, we need to use these sand casts here. So if I'm not mistaken, which I might be because I've not played with the new Tinkers, I think the idea is that you can place the sand cast into the basin, and then you can right click it with an ingot or pod to create a mold. So if we take a seared brick and we right click that on there, that creates an ingot cast. Can I take that out? I can. Oh, but it turns back into a blank sand cast. That makes sense. It's sand after all. So if we do this, we create a mold of sand. From there, I think what we can do is we could smelt down this copper chunk. And then if we were to pull that out via the seared faucet into this sand cast, that would make a copper ingot. Later on down the line, we can make better casts, like we can make real casts out of gold. Unfortunately, right now, we only have sand. That does mean that we lose the cast. So the casts are single use. With chunks, you'll see on the little tooltip here, it says in Smeltery, we get 2 ingots. So if you put a copper chunk into a real Tinker's Smeltery, you get 2 ingots. If you put it into a melter, which is what we currently have, you'll see underneath it says in melter, you get 1 ingot and 3 nuggets. So unfortunately right now, that means that we have this kind of like half bit of copper here that we can't really do much with. Thankfully, what we can do if we want here is if we can get 2 more copper chunks, we can put those in. Each of those will give 1 ingot and 3 nuggets. And of course, once we get to 9 nuggets, that will then form its own ingot. So we should be able to utilize that copper here. We're just going to have to get 8 more copper pieces. So boom and boom, that gets us 2 more copper ore chunks. We'll throw those in like that. And I guess what we're going to want to do then, is actually start working on this quest, the Smeltery controller. So this is going to actually allow us to build a real controller, which will allow us to actually duplicate or get double the amount of copper per chunk that we smelt. So to make an actual smeltery, though, we have to have 4 copper ingots in the melter, and then we have to pull the molten copper over a seared heater. So we have to take this heater, put it into the casting basin, and then pull 4 ingots over it. That should be doable here. If we go ahead and do this, it's going to be a little janky here, chat, but that should give us a second ingot. So now we have 2 ingots in here and 2 ingots in our inventory. So if we re-smelt these down, we can then take a seared heater. Also, real quick, I have kind of forgotten about my other quest, which is to make more grout. There we go. Let's just get that smelting while we wait. But I'm going to make a new heater just so that we can still use this one if needs be. But if we put that in here and we pull the copper over it, that should be a controller. Nice. From there, there's a quest to make seared bricks. Seared bricks are just like this. Boom. We've already made the sand casts, so those are done as well. So the idea here is that we can make a multi-block smeltery that's much bigger than this one, that can both duplicate our ores, but more importantly, it can also just hold more in general. Right now, we can only melt 3 things at a time, and our melter's capacity is only 9 ingots. With an actual smeltery, you can build this really quite large if you want. The image here shows a very small smeltery, but you can, if you like, build a very large one that can hold a ton of items. It can also smelt a bunch of items simultaneously. There are 2 more quests here, one for a seared chute, which allows you to hopper items into the smeltery, and one for a seared drain, which allows you to add a faucet to the smeltery. So that's going to allow us to use these same faucets that we're already using. So these are made with copper and seared stone. So if we're going to make both of these, we need 4 more copper ingots. And so I think it is probably going to be in our best interest here to maybe make at least 1 or 2 more flint meshes so that we can sift just a little bit faster. So 3 copper chunks later, and we have 4 more ingots available to us. So we do need to take these out in ingot form if we're going to use them. Again, seared bricks are your friends here. Even though they're not technically ingots, they do count towards making an ingot cast, and we are actually going to need some more sand here as well. And there we go, 4 copper ingots. So with those, we should then be able to actually make both the seared drain and the seared chute. So seared. Can we make the drain? We can. Can we make the chute? We can. Nice. And that is almost this quest line completely done. The only quest left is right at the top here, the Tinker's Anvil. Used to make more advanced tools like the hammer and the excavator. This quest allows any Tinker's Anvil. So if we want to complete this quest, we need 4 seared bricks and then 3 bronze blocks. So we need 27 bronze in total if we're going to make that work, which seems a little pricey, at least for where we're at right now. So I made a new furnace here so we can smelt 2 things at once, along with the seared brick, which by the way is now done. But chat has pointed out that we do, of course, in new versions of Minecraft, have the smoker, which does smelt items faster. So if I just go ahead and make a new regular furnace here, we could then upgrade that to a smoker. And from there, we are kind of running out of space, but we should be able to cook the fish here that we do now have just a little quicker. All right, so the cooked salmon is done. We're almost there on the charcoal. We're just 11, I think that 10 away. The seared bricks are done. The cooked salmon and the cooked cod are both done. And I have made a new crucible here, so we should be able to quote-unquote upgrade that to the wooden crucible here, which, again, not really useful, I don't think, but is done. And yeah, at that point, all we don't have is the terracotta. But I think the terracotta is going to be easier to make once we have like an actual smeltery. One of these guys right here. So let's go ahead and see if we can't make that happen, right? Now, we are a little light on space, as you may be able to tell. Right now, I'm going to pick up all this stuff. We'll put these sieves away for the time being. We'll come back to those in a minute. I'm going to put the smeltery, I think, right about here. And we might have to begin with a fairly small smeltery. So the smallest smeltery that you can make, I believe, is the one shown in the picture, which looks a little something like this. You have 1 seared brick in the floor. You have your smeltery controller. You have your drain. You have the chute. And you have the bank. I believe that is a functional smeltery. Let me just check. Does the UI open up if I break that? It doesn't. Okay, so yeah, that's not a smeltery. This is a smeltery. Right now, you'll notice this is kind of worse than what we had previously, because here you can smelt 3 items and hold 9 ingots. Here you can smelt 1 item and hold 8 ingots. However, you can upgrade this smeltery by simply making it taller. So if we get more seared bricks here, we can do something like this and increase the size of the smeltery. So now we can smelt 2 items at a time, and we have a capacity for up to 16 ingots. We could do that 1 more time here. Again, you can do this like really as much as you like, but we're kind of limited by vertical space. And now we can do 3 and hold 24. So as I mentioned previously, the reason why I think this is going to be the better method for us is because now we can use a hopper to pump items into the chute here. So we could pump in 64 clay, and we can also store more in the middle here, so we can have a lot more terracotta or molten terracotta in the internal tank. It does require a tank. I don't think, unless it has been changed, I don't think you can use the seared heater in the multi-block structure. I am willing to try that because if you can, it would be very good for us because we don't really have much in the way of lava just yet. If we do something like this and then fill that back in, can I use regular fuel for this thing? No, this doesn't count as a multi-block. Okay, so we do have to use lava for this, which also probably means that we should move this forward by one as well, actually, because we need to be able to access that back block if we're going to fill this thing up with lava. So let's just push this forward by one. So I moved this forward by one and also made it one taller here. We've got the seared tank on the back there. So at this point, what we should do is... Ooh, I think we should probably move... Well, we have to move the fire crucible, right? Because it has to be above lava for it to work, or at least be above a heat source. But what we should probably do is get the old flopper. We can put the flopper down. Let's do it over here. Also, real quick, let's do another little floor fill. Like that, so we can actually get over here. So essentially, I'm thinking all we should do here is put some lava down here. And for now, we'll use a torch, even though it's a little slow. But we could place a torch down. The torch we have is here. Right about there. We can put the crucible above it. And then we can put items in there, create lava, and then just using a cardboard box, move the fire crucible up above the flopper. And that's going to begin putting lava in the smeltery. Thankfully, you don't need a ton of lava. Like the smeltery does use lava every time it smelts something, but it doesn't use so much lava that we would have to, be constantly making it. So I think all we should really have to do here is get like 2 more diorite, hammer that down, like so, craft that up into compressed crushed diorite, and as we've been doing before, we can put that in over here, and that will get us 1,000 millibuckets of lava, albeit fairly slowly. We still can't really do much better than the clay bucket, which does work, but does break anytime you try and move lava. So ideally, we're trying to move lava as little as possible. However, that should be the charcoal quest. It is indeed. However, we really do want to get lava under this crucible to make it a little bit faster. And I guess we're also going to want to do a good deal more gravel sifting here. We are running out of space. I promise, by the way, that before the end of the next stream, we're going to have a bigger base. I know it's getting a little cramped in here. So we're almost at 64 clay blocks here. And we do now have our crucible back up and running with lava underneath it. And I've managed to get a little bit into the tank there. So we do have a little bit ready to go. So what we should be able to do here is if we once again grab our 100th wooden hopper, we should be able to put the hopper on the chute, so like that, with the clay. That should feed the clay into the left slot here and begin smelting down the clay blocks into molten terracotta. And then from there, all we want to do is snag the casting basin and the faucet here. And from there, we can do the exact same thing over here that we were doing over there. And that is we can place down the casting basin. The faucet has to go on the seared drain, so you can then pull out the terracotta or the molten clay once it's done into terracotta. And if we wanted to here, we could make this a little faster by getting another drain and another basin. Because if I'm not mistaken, you should be able to put down another basin here, put down another drain here. And of course, if we wanted to, we could even put a third one on the back as well here. But if we do that, I'm fairly certain at that point, we can begin pulling twice as much out at a time, thus effectively doubling our output. And if we wanted to take this even further, I guess that we could make yet more wooden hoppers to pull out the terracotta once it's done. That way we know straight away when we have to right-click again to get the next batch going. So if we did, let's say, regular Minecraft chest here, and then wooden hopper, that should feed all the terracotta directly into that chest. So up on the surface here, we can just continually right-click this periodically to fill that up. The clay should be automatically fed in, and we should be good to go, actually. Okay, so both the Twitch chat and the pack creator, who is in the Twitch chat, have pointed out that you can put levers above these seared faucets here, and that will provide a redstone signal to the seared faucet, which will instantly begin pulling out molten clay as soon as the terracotta is done. So we have now effectively fully automated this process here. We have the clay being pumped in automatically, being melted down to molten clay, being pulled out over here into the casting basins via the faucets using the levers, and that is creating the terracotta that we're going to complete for the quest. And so yeah, now it's just a case of waiting, and it should fairly soon be done, at which point that should be all of the Chapter 2 challenge quests completed. In terms of Flint sieving here, there is a quest to get a tin ingot and a nickel ingot. If we don't want to be wasteful here, we should make these in this smeltery, because we get 2 ingots per chunk as opposed to 1.3 in this melter. So we should probably just go ahead and get rid of this melter for now. It's probably not really too useful for us. And then once we have the tin and once we have the bronze and constantan, then we can start looking at work in basic automation here. A lot of these quests require bronze and, you guessed it, constantan to make like a lot of this stuff. The basic mechanical pipes are going to allow us to move fluids. So once we have that, we could begin automatically. Also, we should maybe move the dirt here, replace it with cobblestone or something. But we could automatically begin pumping lava from the fired crucible over into the seared tank, which is slowly but surely running out of lava. But we could move the lava over automatically, and at that point we wouldn't have to do the somewhat risky play of trying to pick up the cardboard box without it falling into this pit of lava. And we also then unlock the logistical transporters, which are item pipes, which would allow us to begin pumping the items that are being generated on the surface out of the block breakers into their own storage drawer or into their own chest, so that we can continue to mine blocks automatically, even when the block breakers would have filled up previously, if that makes sense. And we have mentioned the heavy sieve before today. And even further down here, we unlock the auto hammer and the auto sieve, which would allow us to automatically begin, for example, hammering diorite, granite, and andesite into crushed diorite, crushed granite, and crushed andesite, which we could then use for automated lava going forward as well, which is going to be super useful. We do also have the top of Flint sieving here as well. Once we're done with bronze and constantan, next up is Overworldian matter, which is kind of our next key resource. So Overworldian matter is made with organic water. We mentioned this a little bit earlier when talking about the wooden crucible. So the way you make Overworldian matter is in a smeltery. It's an alloy made of organic water, molten tin, and molten clay. So we need all 3 of those. So it's a good thing we have clay automated. Hopefully once we get an auto sieve, we can start automatically getting tin by auto smelting the sand that we're getting up on the surface. And then organic water we can get by putting melon slices, wood chippings or sawdust, seeds, vegetables, saplings, leaves, or pumpkins into a crucible. So for us here, leaves might actually be a good option because we're getting those automatically, and saplings, I guess, from our botany pots. We could make multiple botany pots and begin to get saplings and leaves quite quickly. We can then use those to make organic water, which we can then put into the smeltery with the tin, with the clay, to make Overworldian matter, which we can then pull out using the automated system we have behind us to make Overworldian matter. The Overworldian matter we would then have to sieve to get things like iron, lapis, coal, redstone, silicon, lead, and prosperity shards. The prosperity shards are going to open up the door for us to start with mystical agriculture, which would allow us to start actually growing crops to grow resources, which is definitely something that we should start looking into as soon as we possibly can. But yeah, so that's probably one of the big things we're going to start working on in the next stream, seeing if we can't really move towards getting Overworldian matter. And I think we are going towards automate the production of Overworldian matter as soon as we possibly can. Over here, the terracotta is done, and so I think that should be everything, right? If we go ahead and tick this. Boom. Nice. Cool, so that gets us a draw controller and 2 keys. So the draw controller is actually a super useful block for us to have, because what we can do with the draw controller is we can take some storage drawers. Let's say that we take these 2x2 drawers here and we put them down like here and here. If your drawer is connected to the draw controller, you can put items into any drawer connected to the draw controller through the draw controller, if that makes sense. So for example, let's say we have this dirt here, and let's say that we have 1 dirt in this slot. Now, this is where the drawer key comes in. Normally, you take the dirt out of the drawer is now not locked to anything, and you can put anything in there. If you put an item in, let's say we put some dirt in, and then we lock the drawer, now if we take the dirt out, this drawer, we got the dirt, but this drawer is still locked to dirt. If we look in here, there's 0 dirt in there, but because we locked it, only dirt can be placed into this drawer. That's the only thing that can go in there. Now that we have the drawer controller, what we can do is we can right-click the dirt onto the drawer controller, and it will automatically be placed into the slot that can hold dirt. This is super useful, especially for our block breaking operation upstairs, because what we can do is, let's say that we want to have a regular drawer, like the ones that we have for dirt and for wood. We want to have one of those drawers for all of our resources, right? Sand, red sand, smooth stone, gravel, flint, diorite, andesite, cobblestone, and granite. I think that's everything that's being created up here. Normally, what we would have to do is we would have to pipe out of these block breakers and into all, 9 of those drawers. Now, what we can do is next time we can come back, we can make these logistical transporters, which are basically pipes that can move items. We can have them pull items out of all 3 of these block breakers and pump every single one of those items into one drawer controller, and that drawer controller will automatically place all of the items into the drawer that they need to go into. So we can significantly reduce the complexity and the number of item cables that we need by using that drawer controller, and just in general later on down the line, it's going to make it a lot easier for us to access all of our stuff, and it's also going to make it easier for us to dump everything out of our inventory as well, because as I showed you just a moment ago, if you double right click on the drawer controller, it will take out any items in your inventory that can go in a storage drawer. So again, let's imagine we've got like some cobblestone, we've got some red sand, and we've got some compressed diorite. Right now, my inventory is full of junk. I double right click on the drawer controller. It takes out all the items it can and puts them into their respective drawers. So going forward, if we can get a bunch of storage drawers for most of the key items that we're working with, we should be able to fairly easily empty out the entirety of our inventory into a nice organized storage drawer system using this drawer controller. For now, guys, that is where we're going to wrap up the Seaopolis portion of today's stream.